Here I am after so many years, hounded by hatred and trapped by fear. I'm in a box. I've got no place to go. If I follow my mind, I know I'll slaughter my own. Help me, I'm the prisoner. Won't you hear my plea? I need somebody, yeah, to listen to me. I beg you, brothers and sisters, I'm counting on you, yeah. Black babies in the womb, shackled and bound, chained by the caveman who keeps beauty down. Smacked on the ass when they're squalling and wet. And to a spineless man who never.
Peace and love. Welcome again to the NEPPC podcast. I'm Brother Frank, and I'm with former political prisoner
Abdul Haq Islam.
Today's episode of NEPPC podcast is about the life and the times and the contributions of beloved comrade Field Marshal George Jackson. On August the 21st of 1971, he was taken from us. He was assassinated. He was murdered. George did his work. He left a legacy. He left us with a number of ideas to think about. George understood the importance of being organized and committed to an organized a force, because that was the only way that you can truthfully produce a new reality, a new change, a serious change, a change that was beneficial to a group, a collective. George understood that to not be committed to an organization and just to have that mentality that you just wanted to do whatever you felt like doing and you just wanted to think about yourself, that was counterproductive. So today's episode will be focusing on George. And it's not enough to say you respect somebody. You have to get busy. You have to be about some action. You have to be serious about what they did for you, to the point where you're going to do that for others because you know it's correct. So today's episode, we continue to focus on George and what he meant and being a prisoner of consciousness and how those brothers deserve to come home as well as our political prisoners. You know, our platform is about political prisoners. So, but before we go into this discussion, I just want to provide some updates on the state of some of our political prisoners, right? So one of the things that we want to put emphasis on is to let people know that there is some information out there. On if you are able to see what I posted on the screen, it says go to JerichoNY.org. There's some updates on Ed Poindexter, and there's some update on Joy Powell. Joy Powell is struggling to raise awareness about the living conditions in her prison facility. There's an issue with the AC. And just imagine if there's a number of people who are living in that compromised environment.
At 95 degrees outside.
Exactly. And how intense,
wow.
how intense that would be. So let's think about that. With Ed Poindexter, they're still trying to get an outside source to come and give him recognition regarding his medical situation. And I was informed that he's in Nebraska. So in Nebraska, when they say life, that means life. So his situation, once he get a judge to reduce that life behind his terms to an actual number, then now you could get some situation done differently in terms of the amount of time that he served. But go to that website, JerichoNY.org, and stay updated and get informed about what you can do. So Abdul Haq Islam on our brother George.
Brother George. Yeah, you kind of just hitchhike on what you said about they want Brother Ed Poindexter to die in prison, and that's what Nebraska wants. That is in contradiction to what we say when we say do not let political prisoners die in prison. So a monstrous system, is the opposite of what we're about. They want people to die in prison, to spend every day of their life in prison. So fight, fight, fight. Fight hard, fight the righteous battle to free all political prisoners. Comrade George, you understand? In political terminology, we say that the blood of the martyrs rises up as a weapon against the oppressor. That in the blood of the martyrs, there are fists, there are knives, there are guns, there are supersonic bombers against the system. Comrade George personifies power, strength, a fiery warrior. We need to read his words. Read his. He was an author. Read the Blood in My Eye, Soledad Brother. Comrade George. Had that fiery spirit. And this is the type of brother that serves as an example. People who we call the thugs, the bad boys, gangsters in the black community. These are the type of brothers who are attracted to people like Brother George, just like they were attracted to Brother Malcolm. Now I've walked the halls, you understand, with these type of people, doing time myself, and leaders like Comrade George are brothers who these brothers and sisters look up to and can provide leadership into a life of revolution, to channel that energy, that fire, that warrior spirit. You understand? That soldier instinct can be directed into a force against the system. Brother George believed in organization, building a vanguard, building a structure. He often talked about democratic centralism, which is a central committee, you understand, which operates to give guidance, you understand, through a democratic process, to the masses of the people, so they won't be just running around haywire, willy nilly, everybody going different places. Brother George believed in collecting the people, bringing the people together, bringing the millions and millions, and having um, a relationship between organizations, inter-organizational unity, an idea of bringing them together as a strong force. So many people have taken up the ideas of Comrade George, and this always produces a very, very powerful an atmosphere where we don't believe in falling on the ground, you understand, and being like helpless little puppies or running around like scared to death little rodents, you understand, and being real men, being all we can be, being real men, real women, you understand, the warrior woman, Brother George always talked about the gun, that was something that he really, really loved, the idea of disrupting the system,
Right.
bringing destruction to he recognized that this is a system of total terror, you understand, fascism, you understand, where they use fear and violence, you understand, and George, in spite of being in the most oppressive situation one can imagine, being in prison, you understand, and prisons always attract the type of employees that have the KKK attitude. You understand? So, in spite of all that, you understand, his fire continued to grow. You understand? His fire was not put out by a system which was divine, was designed to destroy that. Never broken. Never bowed down. And so that is an example for our brothers and sisters out here, and being as fierce a warrior as he was, you understand, he was also an example that when we deal with stop the killing, George is an example as fierce as he was against the oppressor. You understand? He believed in having friendly relationships, brotherly and sisterly relationships among the masses of the people, among the masses of black people. So, this is a brother, even though being locked down was of great, great value, very great use to our people, a very, very great example, you understand, which is necessary in many, many of the struggles that we wage today. So remember George, read his writings, Blood in My Eye, and Soledad Brother, have these ideas live in the community, live in our discussions, you understand, in our political education. Brother George, a very, very valuable assets. Yeah, dog.
Asset.
Asset.
Right,
I know
exactly,
that word.
brother.
I know that word
yes.
like I know the back of my head.
Yeah.
Asset to the black community.
But just speaking on George's writing and his material that he produced for people so he could raise their consciousness, I remember reading Blood in My Eye and examining how George transferred his life from a criminal mentality to that of a revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
George was empowered by the works of Karl Marx, Mao, Lenin, and a number of
Che,
a number of forward-thinking writers or and thinkers, individuals that were more than just writing on what was going on. They were making their contribution to organizing and to changing their reality. So George was able to look at his situation from an entirely different perspective. He was not being absorbed in the self-pity about what his current situation is, but he understood the social conditions of his people, and he concluded that there were many like him, and they had to come together. They had to set aside their differences, and they had to address the problem at hand. George would teach us about our petty disputes, our petty differences, and the fact that we had to set aside those to the side because of fascism was already here. It was taking place, and many of us who could be saved would not be saved because of our lack of doing something about the current conditions. So once George was able to put those ideas on paper and make others aware, that's when he had the people's attention. And that's why you see response that happened when George was assassinated. You see the Attica uprising. You see a number of organizations start to evaluate themselves differently in terms of their perspective and their approach. Because a lot of times when you don't have a political identity and when you're in an organization and you don't have an objective that you're trying to carry out, then you could be going all over the places. And like George said, you'll be counterproductive. So I think that that's very important that we understand the importance of being disciplined, focused, and having a clear political position when it comes to what we are fighting for politically, right? We're just talking about the relationship between people and power. And when you understand that, you understand what's really at hand, right? As I said earlier about Joy Powell's current current prison situation with them lacking ACs. And then you look at Ed Poindexter, his situation with not getting a prosthetic leg, and them actually telling him or his family rather, matter of fact, even both, that he has to work harder at physical therapy, and they're not trying to help him with the prosthetic leg, which is really a decision that taxpayers who built the prison facility off their labor and who continue to fund the prison facility off their labor should have the first and final say so in those matters. We don't need nobody speaking on behalf of us. You have referendums that allow us to speak on behalf of ourselves. That's just an example, but I'm looking at the situations at both individuals, and I'm looking at what George stood for. And George was organizing prisoners, and he was a man's man, meaning that he spoke something and he took action on what he spoke. He wasn't selling wolf tickets. He was a man doing his work. So in that spirit and that understanding, we have to be that if we truthfully respect George Jackson, right? And we understood George was about real change. And that's why we have to take our political prisoner work very seriously, because it's about real change. They're not terrorists, they're freedom fighters. And you're not housing no criminals, you're housing freedom fighters. They are freedom fighters. They know that our self-determination is our right to exist. Our self-determination is our actual freedom, because it's in our hands, and it is what we decide what's going to be the outcome of our lives today, tomorrow, and the day after. So when we talk about George Jackson and his writings and his relationship to his brother Jonathan Jackson, we need to ask ourselves, what is our relationship to our family, both biological and political? Obviously, he had both type of relationships, right? He was a father figure to his brother. He's also a mentor and a director in terms of his political development. And those relationships are the best relationships that you can have when they are connected on both sides, right? Because now you have somebody who knew you their entire life, and now they respect you at a whole entirely different level because of your political development. And his letters to Jonathan, he was always giving him his outlook on the world, and from that, he wanted his brother to understand how he needed to look at the world. He needed to focus on what was actually happening so that he wouldn't be taken off point. So he wouldn't get caught up into what those of the time were getting caught up in terms of being distracted and set astray. I think in 2023, when we talk about George and we talking about what's going on in Africa, and we talk about the continuation of police terrorism, we look at George and we ask ourselves, what would George say? What would George do? George would and definitely instruct us to be organized, make a commitment to an organization, and from that decide what should be carried out and carry it out precisely. I think that, to call yourself a revolutionary and not be a part of no organization, you're only fooling yourself. You're only doing the people a disservice. You're actually prolonging your social conditions, the oppression of your people, because of your lack of participating in creating a new reality. So, brother, how would you relate, or how would you tell the youth to relate to George Jackson in 2023?
Well, similarly, like I said before, you young brothers and sisters out there, you understand, they call yourself soldiers, call yourself warriors and whatever nouns you might go by, if all that is directed toward somebody who looks like you, to put somebody in the grave, you understand, that has your kind of hair, nose, and lips, you understand, then what you're talking about ain't worth two dead flies. To be a real soldier is to stand up to the real oppressor. Those who are bloodsuckers all over the world, who uh, in our community suck the blood of our people and suck the spirit from the people. You understand, which has the intention, the strategic military objective of making us all cowards. So when George and people like George was able to reach the height of their humanity, you understand, in a context, in a steel and concrete context, you understand, which was designed to crush us, to crush our humanity, to crush every molecule of our being, you understand? And so this is what a true warrior is. A true warrior is against a show enough enemy. The biggest mass murderers that have ever lived. You understand? To be able to stand up to them, to the powerful forces, that wage war against us. And so this is what is glorious. This is what is honorable. There's no honor, you understand, in destroying your people. There's no honor in that. There's no pride in that. True pride comes, in having true courage, having true character, the ability, you understand, and the heart to stand up to that which is perceived as 1,000 times bigger than what you are, And as George said, to bring our forces together, you understand, to gather all our people in a structure,
Unity
you
and
understand,
solidarity.
where we could feel. When I read George, when I was in jail, I felt free. I felt power, you understand, in a situation in which one is supposed to feel like they have no power whatsoever. You understand? I felt power in me. You understand? And it was a beautiful feeling. You understand? And this is what we get. You understand? When we take advantage of this great leadership, the great ones who walked among us. You understand? That lift us up as a people. And ain't nothing gonna stop us. Can nothing conquer us? You understand? When we know that we are unconquerable. When we come together. You understand? Gather our forces, as Brother George said. And can't nothing beat us.
Yes, those are excellent points. George stood for unity and solidarity, especially when
Right.
it came to something that was in opposition to us. That was the only way that we were going to win. George let us know that we will win. George also let us know that they would not count him amongst the unbroken men. I mean, amongst the broken men. That he was in fact unbroken.
That's right.
And that was our beloved Field Marshals, Coltrane Shimaranga's motto. He was unbroken, and those who will take a position on fighting for freedom must remain unbroken, must have that unbroken mentality. How does one have that unbroken mentality? Well, as we conclude in Black August, we understood the importance of exercise, discipline, focus. You have to be real committed to your political study so that when you talk amongst the people, you know that this is your position politically. And whatever else that they're saying, those are distractions. And those ideas will not benefit us as a collective. It might benefit an individual, but if we continue to contribute to those ideas or allow those ideas to exist that only benefits individuals, and we don't smash those ideas or we don't let people know that we have to think differently, then the conditions will continue to remain the same. And that's the role that we have to play when we call ourselves revolutionaries. We have to stand on principles, and we have to conduct serious examinations of what we are doing and what we're not doing. And we have to do that on a regular basis, right? It's not easy, right? Because we all have flaws. But once you understand what your role in society is, then you understand how you relate to what's currently happening and its continuation. So George Jackson let us understand that very clearly. He was committed to fighting for his people. And I think that when we take George's ideas and we relate it and we apply it, to what's going on in 2023, then we have to ask ourselves, what are we using that, or how are we using that in various situations? Like the brother earlier said about stopping senseless violence, stopping senseless killings.
Mm-hmm.
What would George say? George, as I said earlier, would let us know about the dangers of petty differences, petty disputes, that we had to focus on what was going on, right? Those, I'm paraphrasing George, but that's what he meant, right? And we take George's ideas and apply it to political prisoners. Now, George seen himself as a revolutionary, right? The same way we see ourselves as a revolutionary. Those who understand that there's a current condition existing that is counterproductive to the life of people. And in fact, we say that the ideas of the capitalists are inhumane, and we want a humane society, and we have to fight for that. So understanding what George stood for and understanding that, then we put ourselves on the sides of those who are organizing people and those who have created organizations to fight that for change that is beneficial to the collective. So we relate that or George's ideas to political prisoners. We understand that these are casualties of the fight for a humane world. And being that they're casualties, they must not be forgotten. We must insert their ideas into our work currently. And that's why you seen me earlier put up the third annual vegan festival in Queensbridge. I'll be out there with a table on political prisoners. We also seen me put out the weekly community grievance support group that is held at Jacob Reset Community Center in Queensbridge at an area known as the Hill, where we come together, we talk about each other's problems, and we give our best advice. We utilize the teachings and the contributions of Aranza Bowers in that session. At least I'm allowed to do so because of my relationship with him, and as well as my relationship with political prisoners, those who are fighting to create a humane world. And I think that it's important that our audience, our viewers, understand that our podcast is a part of our work, and our street work is another part of our work. Like if you ever see Abdul Haq Islam on the street selling his oil, ask him about what you've seen on the podcast. Engage in the discussion. Ask him for any material. If he has any on hand, then he'll give you an NEPPC brochure. For those of you who want to get involved in this particular work, we provide our contact. Sefusankofa at Gmail, Sefusankofa at Gmail. Hit me up on the email, call my phone, 347-679-3936. Again, that's 347-679-3936. We have to provide that information or that link to us, that connection to us, so you understand the seriousness of the work. The work is for those who are very serious about change, who are very serious about getting busy, because that's what George was about. He was about change seriously, and he did his work seriously. I mean, that's the whole point. The point of us putting out this podcast for us to communicate regularly, to be consistent in his work, and then to create stronger relationships. You know, when you talk about George, my brother, right? What are the last words that you want to leave people so we can close up this powerful episode, brother?
Well, right now, right this minute, right this second, there is a conflict between the ideas of turn the other cheek versus black power. Brother George, Comrade George, stood for black power, and he said that it takes 3.5 pounds of pressure to pull the trigger. Right now, George does not have the ability to apply 3.5 pounds of pressure to pull a trigger. But through the public discourse of our people, through political education, through spreading these ideas of standing up, you understand, of being fiery, of being totally fearless, you understand, of fighting, putting that fight in our heart, you understand, that 3.5 pounds of pressure is multiplied millions and millions and millions of times through the power of the people, through the masses of the people, you understand, coming together, organizing, you understand, under correct ideas, not that submissive idea, you understand, but that fight back idea, fight for your rights, understanding that you have rights, and this is where dignity and self-respect is all about, you understand, not being self-deprecating, you understand, crawling around like a little mouse, you understand, but being real in the spirit, you understand. So let's think about the tremendous power that masses of people have, you understand, when we come together, you understand, with powerful ideas, you understand, and give them structural form and give them a form of active participation, a mobilized force, you understand, for freedom, justice, and equality, black power.
What's the call?
Free them all.
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 What's the